Let me ask you, how many times have you reacted to a situation and later regretted it? Maybe it was an argument where words were spoken too fast, or a moment of frustration that led to a bad decision. We've all been there. But imagine if, in every difficult situation, you had the ability to pause, think, and respond with clarity instead of emotion. What if calmness wasn't just something we hoped for, but something we trained ourselves to have? We don't always get to control what happens around us, but we do control how we respond. Stressful moments will come, chaos will happen, but your reaction, that's entirely within your power. The key is to stop letting external factors dictate your internal state. Think of calmness like a muscle. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become strong. You train for it. The same is true for your mind. Every time you choose calmness over chaos, you are strengthening that mental muscle. And over time, it becomes your default response. The biggest mistake we make reacting too fast. We don't take a second to pause. But if we train ourselves to take a deep breath, count to 3, and ask, what's the best response here? We give ourselves the space to respond wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Emotions are powerful, but they can also blind us. The moment you step back from frustration, you start seeing solutions instead of problems. Calmness allows you to make better choices, build better relationships, and lead with confidence. And here's the best part. Calmness is a skill, not a talent. The more you practice, the better you get. Every situation is an opportunity to train your mind. And with time, staying calm won't be something you have to force. It will be who you are. Let me ask you a question. How often do you find yourself reacting to something without thinking? Maybe it's an email that frustrated you, a traffic jam that tested your patience, or a conversation where someone's words triggered an emotional response. In those moments, do you feel in control, or do you feel like your emotions are controlling you? We live in a world full of unpredictable situations. You can't control how others behave. You can't control the unexpected challenges that come your way. But there is one thing you have absolute control over: your response. That's where the power lies. And yet, most people spend their lives trying to change everything except themselves. They get caught up in frustration, stress, and anxiety because they believe the situation is the problem. But the real challenge isn't what happens, it's how we handle it. Think about the people you admire most. The leaders, the mentors, the ones who seem to have this unshakable presence about them. What do they have in common? It's not that their lives are easier. It's not that they don't face difficulties. It's that they have mastered the ability to stay calm in the midst of chaos. That ability is not something they were born with. It's something they trained themselves to do. Training your mind to be calm starts with a simple but powerful realization. You always have a choice. In every situation, no matter how difficult, you have a moment, a split second, where you can either react impulsively or respond intentionally. That moment is where growth happens. That moment is where strength is built. But most people never take advantage of it because they're too caught up in their emotions. Picture this. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Instinctively, you feel anger bubbling up. Your heart rate increases, your hands tighten on the wheel, and maybe, just maybe, you want to honk aggressively or say something out loud, even if no one else hears it. But what if, instead, you paused? What if you took a deep breath and reminded yourself that this moment is just a moment, and it doesn't deserve your peace? But what if you trained yourself every single day to master that pause? That pause is everything. It's the difference between a leader and a follower. It's the difference between a strong mind and a fragile one. The person who learns to pause before reacting is the person who learns to master themselves. And when you master yourself, external situations lose their power over you. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about controlling how they affect you. It's about recognizing that the situation is neutral. It's your interpretation of it that creates stress. The world isn't going to slow down for you. The challenges aren't going to stop coming. But you can decide right now that no matter what happens, you will train yourself to stay calm. Because when you do that, you don't just change how you handle situations, you change who you are. Imagine walking into a gym for the first time, looking at all the weights, the machines, and the people who seem to lift effortlessly. If you've never trained before, you wouldn't expect to pick up the heaviest dumbbell and lift it with ease. Strength takes time to build. It takes repetition, discipline, and consistency. Now think of your mind the same way. Just like physical training, mental resilience, especially the ability to stay calm, doesn't happen overnight. It's something that must be trained every single day. Most people believe that staying calm is either a personality trait or a matter of luck. They assume that some people are naturally composed while others are just more reactive. But that's not true. Calmness is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed. The problem is that most people don't think of it that way. They react emotionally to situations without realizing they have the power to rewire their responses. They assume that frustration, stress, or anxiety is just the way they are. But the truth is their minds are simply untrained. Think about how your brain works. Every time you react to something emotionally, you are strengthening that reaction. If you get angry at small inconveniences, that reaction becomes automatic. If you panic under pressure, your brain learns that pattern. But the good news is that the opposite is also true. Every time you choose calmness over chaos, you are rewiring your brain to default to peace instead of panic. The key is repetition. The more you practice staying calm in small moments, the more natural it becomes in big moments. Let's say you're in a stressful meeting at work. Someone challenges your idea, and your instinct is to defend yourself aggressively or shut down completely. But if you've trained your mind, you'll recognize what's happening. You'll notice the tension building. You'll feel the emotions rising, but instead of reacting immediately, you'll take a breath. You'll create space between the trigger and your response. And in that space, you'll find clarity. Instead of lashing out, you'll respond with thoughtfulness. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you'll stay in control. That's what training your mind does. It gives you power over your emotions instead of letting them control you. The mistake most people make is thinking they'll be calm when life gets easier. But life doesn't get easier. Challenges don't disappear. The world doesn't suddenly become more peaceful. It's not the world that needs to change. It's you. If you wait for circumstances to be perfect before you practice calmness, you'll be waiting forever. The time to train is now, in the middle of the chaos. So start small. Train your mind the way you would train your body. Begin with little moments, delays, disagreements, unexpected setbacks. Each one is an opportunity. Each one is a rep in the mental gym. And just like any muscle, the more you train it, the stronger it gets. Until one day, staying calm isn't something you have to think about, it's just who you are. One of the biggest mistakes we make in life is reacting too quickly. We don't take the time to pause, reflect, or think before we respond. Someone says something we don't like and we immediately get defensive. Something doesn't go our way and frustration takes over. A challenge appears and we panic. But what if, instead of reacting, we trained ourselves to slow down? What if we built the habit of reflection instead of reaction? Most people don't realize how much power there is in a single pause. That split second between what happens and how you respond can change everything. It can be the difference between escalating a conflict or resolving it, the difference between making a smart decision or an impulsive one, the difference between leading with confidence or letting emotions take over. That pause is where real strength is built. And yet, most people never take advantage of it because they let emotions dictate their actions instead of training their minds to think first. Think about the last time you regretted something you said or did. Chances are it wasn't because you carefully thought through your actions. It was because you reacted in the heat of the moment. That's what happens when we don't create space between stimulus and response. We let emotions drive us instead of using logic and perspective. But when we build the habit of pausing, everything changes. Suddenly, we're not just reacting, we're choosing. Let's put this into a real-world scenario. Imagine you receive an email that upsets you. Maybe a colleague misunderstood you, a client criticized your work, or your boss sent a message that feels unfair. What's your first instinct? Most people would immediately start typing a response, defending themselves, proving a point, or expressing frustration. But if you pause, if you train yourself to sit with the emotions for a moment, something interesting happens. The urgency to respond starts to fade. You begin to see the situation more clearly. You ask yourself, what's the best way to handle this, instead of just reacting based on how you feel in that moment. Now extend that habit to every area of your life. a disagreement with a friend, a tough conversation with a loved one, a difficult decision at work. In each of these moments, there is power in the pause. Because when you pause, you create space for wisdom. You allow yourself to step back and see the bigger picture. And most importantly, you give yourself control over your own mind instead of letting outside circumstances control you. This is a skill that takes time to develop, but once you master it, it changes everything. Instead of being someone who is easily rattled, you become someone who is steady. Instead of making decisions you regret, you start making choices you're proud of. And instead of letting life push you around, you take ownership of how you show up in every situation. That's the power of shifting from reaction to reflection, and that's the mindset that will set you apart. Emotions are powerful. They can drive us to take action, inspire us to push forward, and help us connect with others. But they can also cloud our judgment, lead us into unnecessary conflict, and make us feel overwhelmed. The key to mastering calmness is learning how to separate emotions from the decisions we make. Because when emotions take over, logic fades. And when logic fades, we stop seeing the situation for what it really is. We only see how it makes us feel. Imagine you're in a heated argument with someone. Your heart starts racing, your body tenses up, and your mind goes into defense mode. In that moment, it feels like there's only one option: fight back. You feel the need to prove a point, to be heard, to make sure the other person knows they're wrong. But if you let emotions drive your response, what happens next? The conversation escalates. Words are spoken that can't be taken back. The problem becomes bigger than it actually is. Now, imagine a different scenario. The same argument starts, but this time you recognize what's happening. Instead of reacting impulsively, you step back. Mentally, not physically. You acknowledge the emotions rising within you, but you don't let them dictate your response. You ask yourself, what's really happening here? What outcome do I want? Suddenly, instead of fueling the fire, you have the power to shift the conversation. You focus on the solution, not the emotion. You maintain your composure while the other person may still be caught up in the heat of the moment. And in doing so, you lead the situation in a better direction. This applies to every area of life. When we face challenges at work, relationships, or even within ourselves, emotions often try to take control. Fear tells us to avoid risks. Frustration tells us to give up. Anger tells us to react aggressively, but none of those emotions are good decision makers. They are temporary feelings, not long-term strategies. That's why training your mind to detach from the emotional storm and focus on the bigger picture is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. The best leaders, the most successful individuals, and the people we admire most all have one thing in common. They don't let emotions dictate their actions. They feel emotions just like everyone else, but they've trained themselves to process them differently. Instead of reacting immediately, they analyze. Instead of being controlled by frustration or fear, they seek understanding and clarity. This is not about ignoring emotions or suppressing them. It's about using them wisely. It's about recognizing that while emotions provide information, they should never be the final decision maker. The next time you feel yourself getting overwhelmed by emotion, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I responding to the situation, or am I just reacting to how it makes me feel? That small shift in perspective can change everything. Because the moment you learn to detach from emotion and focus on the solution, you gain control, not just over the situation, but over yourself. Mastery of anything requires practice. No one becomes an expert overnight, and no skill is developed without effort. The ability to stay calm in every situation is no different. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's something you build. The more you train yourself to stay composed in difficult situations, the easier it becomes. And over time, what once required effort becomes second nature. But the key to developing this skill is consistency. Most people only think about calmness when they're in the middle of a storm. They find themselves in a stressful situation and suddenly wish they knew how to stay composed. But by then, it's too late to start training. Calmness isn't built in the moment of chaos. It's built in the moments leading up to it. Just like an athlete doesn't wait until game day to start training, you can't wait until life throws challenges at you to start practicing calmness. You have to train for it daily. Training your mind starts with small moments. When you're stuck in traffic, do you let frustration take over, or do you use it as an opportunity to practice patience? When a conversation isn't going your way, do you react emotionally, or do you take a breath and think before speaking? When plans change unexpectedly, do you get upset, or do you adapt with a level head? These moments may seem small, but they are your training ground. Every time you choose calmness over reactivity, you are reinforcing that mindset. And just like lifting weights builds muscle, choosing composure repeatedly builds mental strength. Think about the people who remain calm under pressure. They weren't born that way. They trained for it. They've experienced setbacks, faced difficult conversations, and encountered high-pressure situations. But instead of letting emotions control them, they use those experiences to refine their ability to stay steady. They weren't perfect in the beginning, but through repetition, they became masters of their own minds. The challenge most people face is that they don't see immediate results. They expect to stay calm once and suddenly be transformed. But that's not how growth works. No one goes to the gym once and expects to be in peak shape. It takes weeks, months, and even years of consistent effort. The same applies to training your mind. Some days will be harder than others. Some situations will test you more than you expect. But the goal is progress, not perfection. So commit to practicing daily. Start with the small things, and when the big challenges come, you'll be ready. When stress appears, remind yourself that this is an opportunity to train. When emotions rise, take a deep breath and choose calmness. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes, and one day you'll realize that what used to shake you no longer does. Not because life got easier, but because you became stronger.